Hi, Sweet Pea.
Hi, Mummy Bear.
We have another chit-chat.
We do episode 55.
Episode 55 with Pippa Chapman.
Yes.
And Pippa is the food forest queen.
Exactly.
She was on Gardener's World 2025, episode 21. So earlier this year. And she had the garden, which was taken up a lot by polytunnel. She does explain a bit about how that came about and why the polytunnel's possibly slightly larger than you'd have in a garden of that size.
Exactly. It's not her fault whatsoever.
And also on the episode, we saw her beautiful food forests, the permaculture that she does in her garden, and the advice she gave all around that. And we hear more about that on this episode, as well as Pippa's beautiful dream garden. But there's some really great tips on this episode.
I know.
Tips on how to disguise an ugly fence, which is
really
just what we need.
Yeah.
Tips on whittling.
Which is actually quite cool.
Yeah, this has actually inspired me to ask Santa for a whittling knife set.
Oh my gosh, you were in your own little world when she's talked about that.
I'm so into the idea of whittling. Why haven't I whittled to date? This is the big question on everyone's lips.
That's always the question. Why haven't I whittled? Who knows?
We also hear about making soaps and moisturisers, especially if you suffer with skin problems. There are some great tips here from Pippa on how you do that.
Yeah.
You were particularly interested in that, weren't you?
I mean, it's perfect for me. The podcast that we have been having is brilliant because it's setting me up perfectly for Christmas time when I'm planning on making moisturisers, soaps, all of those things. And have a lot of fun.
Buying your mother a whittling knife set.
Okay, and buying my mum a whittling knife set, yes, okay.
So we have a lot of links from Pippa, not leastly for her book that she's written, and a book that is also coming out early next year.
Yeah.
We also have links to some of the gardens that she mentions and some information on soaps, making soaps and the ratios. I think it's called the soap calculator, something like that. Anyway, she's given us a link, so that'll go on our website. And that all goes on the gardens page on the website, notjustagarden.co.uk. And Pippa will be on the Rogues Gallery on the Chit-Chats page.
Of course, with her face right there.
And if you have any questions or any comments or anything you want to discuss around this episode, please do get in touch. There's a contacts page on our website under contacts, and or you can contact us on our email address, which is notjustagarden@outlook.com.
Exactly. And also, we do just want to say that this episode was recorded back in November. I think it was the 3rd of November that we
Third week of November.
3rd week of November, that was it. And that's why we talk about specifically hybridizing with tomatoes around that time of year.
Good point, Sweet Pea. So tell us the format.
So for Pippa's Dream Garden, the format is garden boundary, shed or greenhouse, 5 ornamentals, 5 edibles, 1 statement tree, pond or pool plus 1 plant, and finally favourite seating area, drink, and 1 plant for that area.
That's it. So let's have a listen to Pippa.
Let's get into it.
This is episode 55, A Good Ol Chit-Chat with Pippa Chapman.
Off we go.
Welcome, Pippa, to Good Ol Chit-Chat.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Thank you very much for joining us. We saw you on this series, 2025. You were back on episode 21 with your beautiful garden. I couldn't really, it was all very close up because we were looking at your permaculture and your food forest. That was a kind of a knowing laugh. Was it close up to avoid seeing other stuff?
No, it was more that I think because we wanted to focus so much on the wildlife, we had so much fun like chasing beetles around the garden and things like that, trying to get some good shots. So
funny, the poor beetles were just like, leave me alone.
Yes.
Enough already.
We had so much fun recording it. It was great. I really liked how the footage that they chose really focused on the wildlife and how much there was going on in the garden.
There was a lot scuttling about, wasn't there? Butterflies, beetles, bumblebees. There was a centipede at one point.
Yes.
It was really beautiful. So when we recapped that episode, we had a look at your background, and I think it's on your website maybe, where you talk about how you have had a career in horticulture for 30 odd years and used to work for a private garden before then embarking on this sort of new route within horticulture.
Yeah.
What was that transition? Where did you come from and where did you go to?
So I quite early on in my career, I think I was in my mid-20s when I got a job as a head gardener, which, at the time I thought, wow, this is amazing, head gardener job, and came with a beautiful 3-bedroom cottage in a lovely little village.
Wow. Where was that?
That's nice.
It's in North Yorkshire,
right.
little village called Lothersdale. And so, yeah, it felt amazing. But I think quite quickly, I realised that I was now the most senior member of staff, and that actually I didn't really have all the skills that I wanted to have yet.
Yeah.
So I think it was a combination of that, and also, I mean, I've always really loved sort of wildlife and the natural world, and I've always been really aware of organic growing and that kind of way of doing things. But in this garden, they wanted, bowling green lawns, so lots of weed and feed and moss killer and that kind of thing going on. And I think I just got to the point where I thought, actually, this isn't really where I want to be.
Wasn't fulfilling.
No, and I think there was just there was one day where I was really, I mean, I'd been feeling really conflicted about it for a while, but I think when you're young, you just think, oh, this is what head gardeners do. So, I just have to make their lawns look perfect. I was just watering on some weed and feed onto the lawn, and a little bumblebee flew underneath the spray of my watering can, and I just thought, I can't do this anymore. It's just not, I just can't do it. So
it's a pivotal moment for you.
Yeah, and
I was bumblebee.
Yes, I was just really lucky that I just looked into sort of training in the local area, and I saw that the RHS were recruiting, they had open recruitment for their traineeship programs, and we have in Harrogate, not far from where I live, there's RHS Harlow Car. So I applied thinking, oh, they'll never take me on because I'm already a head gardener, so they'll probably just think, that I don't need the training. But I went along to the interview and I explained why I was there, why I wanted to learn more. And I was really lucky to get on the training program. And it was just the most amazing year of learning that I've had. It was a really practical year of horticulture. So we didn't spend time in a classroom at all. We were just every day. We were out going around different areas. So we would, one week I'd be in the alpine house. The following week I'd be in the productive garden. Then I'd be in the woodland. Then I'd be in the plant nursery. And so we sort of rotated around the same 6 areas for every week for a whole year. And it was just amazing. I loved every second of it.
That must have been an alleluia moment, going from your pristine croquet lawns to that at RHS Harlow Car. How fantastic. Prior to getting your head gardener role, what studies had you done to get there?
I'd just done the RHS level 2. That was all. I was just really lucky that I had done a degree in sculpture, so that's what I'd wanted to do originally. And then that didn't quite work out, how I'd imagined. And so I decided to have a career change quite early on. I'd only finished university, maybe 2 or 3 years. I got a job in a garden centre, then decided I wanted to actually work in a real garden. So I did my RHS level 2 and got a job in this garden just as a beginner gardener, but very quickly got promoted to be head gardener. So it all happened very quickly with very little qualifications. I did my RHS level 3 whilst I was a head gardener, but the RHS qualifications are great, but they're not, they don't give you any experience. There's no sort of real it's all book learning, really.
And it's needed, the experience.
So then doing the apprenticeship, which is completely hands-on, do you leave after that year? What do you leave with a qualification, or is it just a year of amazing experience?
It's called a certificate in practical horticulture. So it is, you get a certificate and it is a qualification. It's not, I mean, it might have changed now. This is quite a long time ago now. But yeah, you go away with with a certificate, and I suppose all the experience, when you say to people you've had a solid year of working in all these
priceless.
Varied
how incredible. So then after that year of apprenticeship, what did you then go on to do?
So I met my husband while I was there. So he was also working at Harlow Car.
That's a win-win, isn't it?
Yes.
It is.
And so we quite quickly decided that we wanted to set up our own business. We wanted to do gardening that was organic and ecological, and to really concentrate on doing our own thing, really, so that we didn't have to do what somebody else wanted. We could entirely, if someone says, oh, I want you to pour weed and feed on my lawn, we could say, oh, actually, we don't do that.
Yeah.
So we set up our own business, doing, well, all sorts of things, really. It wasn't just gardening. We sold foraged jams and jellies on a farmer's market. We set up a plant nursery. We did.
Amazing.
We did all sorts of things.
Yeah. You're talking past tense there. Are you no longer doing those things?
we don't do the farmers markets anymore, and we moved, so we don't have our plant nursery anymore, because where we moved to, we didn't have the space to have that anymore. Although we're looking at setting something up again on a small scale, because we absolutely loved having the plant nursery.
Yeah.
So now we mostly we have 4 gardens which we develop on a regular basis, so we're there maintaining and developing those.
So these are clients of yours?
Yes, so they're clients.
Right. Okay.
And so they all have elements of food forests within them. So we have 4 gardens that we go to every week, and then also on top of that, now I've got my second book coming out soon, so I've kind of really embraced writing. Really enjoying that.
What are your 2 books?
So my first book is The Plant Lover's Backyard Forest Garden, which was all about when I created a really small forest garden in my yard at my previous house. And then I've got a book coming out. It's out in February, and it's called Permaculture Planting Designs. So it's a kind of combination of explaining how to create your own designs, but then there's a series of 12 themed designs already ready-made in the book, from everything from like a craft garden, so growing your own weaving and dyeing materials. And,
cool.
A jam guild, so a grouping of plants for jam lovers. And a family-friendly forest garden, so if you want to let your small children just forage in a garden without worrying, there's every plant in there, is every part of it is edible. So really wide range, even one which is a tropical style forest garden, because I think that I mentioned this in the Gardeners World episode as well. Lots of people think that permaculture has to be kind of wild and messy and full of nettles and scruffy. And whilst that, that is wonderful for wildlife, so I'm not knocking that at all. And I do have parts of my gardens that look like that. Some people want to grow their own food in a food forest way, in a way that embraces nature, but they want it to look fantastic as well. So this idea of how can you make like a subtropical style garden, but actually still following all the same ethical framework and helping with biodiversity as well. So just had so much fun creating all these designs for the book.
Oh, fantastic.
Very, very
is that
cool.
with your husband or independent?
No, I just do that myself.
So we were talking to Liz Zorab not that long ago, and she was telling us about her food forest that she's working on.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit more about food forests and permaculture and how they interlink?
So permaculture is very much a kind of a way of thinking. It's like a design system based on ethics and principles. So it's very much about earth care. So meaning that, what you're doing is not putting weed and feed on your garden. You're caring for the earth. And it's about people care as well. So it's quite a lot about community. And I always think people care as well is about making sure that the materials that you're using are not exploiting anyone in their construction. So thinking about where everything comes from that comes into your garden. And it's also talking about fair shares. So that's partly to do with, thinking about not over consuming. In the West, we consume a lot more than people in other parts of the world. So trying not to over consume. So I like to think of permaculture, it's very much a way of thinking, whereas food forests are more like a specific technique or a method, if that makes sense. So food forests fit into permaculture in that way. And so forest gardening, I think it always frustrates me because it's such a difficult term, because people immediately think, oh, I haven't got my own forest, so I can't garden in it, or I don't have room to put a forest in my garden. When really what it's about is taking inspiration from the natural ecosystem of a forest. So how that is really self-sustaining. You know, no one's going in and watering or weeding or feeding a forest. It just grows and it thrives. And it's unlike, say, a field of wheat or even an apple orchard where you've just got one crop growing in one place. A forest has all sorts of things, all these different layers, and it really makes use of the vertical space, so you can grow a massive diversity of crops within one space. But obviously in a small garden, you're not thinking about giant forest trees. You're thinking about maybe a dwarf fruit tree, and then a layer under that might be a blackcurrant, and then a layer under that might be some mint, and a layer under that might be some alpine strawberries, and then you might have some peas or something like that growing up through, you know, all those other layers. So it's about taking this idea of how a forest grows, but then adapting it to how we might be able to use that same kind of like creating a mini ecosystem with lots of layers, but on a much smaller scale, and by carefully choosing the plants that are useful for us. So
when you're maintaining your space, and you said, I think on the show you said, oh, people think it's about being messy, but then later on you said it's good to have it messy.
Well, I think what I mean is you don't have, the planting itself, the style of planting doesn't have to be messy. So you could have box edging around your forest garden if you want. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But when I talk about maintenance being messy, is don't tidy away all your leaves, don't cut all your dead stems and take them away, don't kind of leave your soil bare. So it's more about the maintenance of it and leaving organic matter. So like when I'm sort of putting the garden to bed now, as we say, I mean, in a forest garden you could technically just leave everything, never cut anything back, just leave it to do its own thing, and that would look appealing. That would look it would look wild and messy, which, you know, yes, it's low maintenance, yes, it's the best thing for wildlife, but we don't all want our garden to be still full of dead stems when new plants are coming up next year. But a good alternative is just get some shears, chop everything in situ into tiny pieces, and then that becomes the mulch immediately on the bed. So you're not having to chop and drop, you're having to take it to the compost heap and then bring it back, and you just chop it up in situ. So that's what I mean really about being messy. You know, a lot of wildlife likes to, you know, we talk about plants for pollinators, and most gardeners are really enthusiastic about growing plants that will feed bees and butterflies and things like that. But we quite often forget about where the other things these insects need, such as places to hibernate or places to complete their life cycle. A lot of insects' larvae need, you know, rotting wood or decomposing leaves in which to complete their life cycle. So if you've got, you know, a corner of your garden that you're not too bothered about, then just pile some leaves and branches there and leave them. Don't just keep, you know, tidying everything away all the time. So I suppose what I mean is the planting style can be much more ornamental, and it can be much more, you know, you could grow, if you wanted to, blocks of strawberries and then blocks of Jerusalem artichokes or something like that. It doesn't have to be a complete mess, but it's more how you maintain it that makes the difference in terms of it being great for biodiversity.
So on the show, some of the filming was done in a polytunnel?
Oh yes, there was a little bit of in our polytunnel.
Right. So the garden that was on the show, is that the garden you have now?
Yes.
Where you went
yes.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
What sort of size is your garden?
So it's about 35 meters long and 10 meters wide.
Okay.
Okay.
And
lovely.
quite a lot of it is taken up with a big polytunnel.
Right, is it?
Where we lived before, we had 5 acres. And for our wedding, we requested, we didn't want loads of like little trinkets and cushion covers. We asked for people to donate towards a polytunnel.
That's a great wedding present.
That was our wedding present, was this polytunnel. and we really, really wanted to bring it with us, particularly because where we've moved to is quite windy, and so we knew that would be a really valuable growing space. So I think the polytunnels, maybe trying to think now how long it is. It's probably about 8 meters, 9 meters long, something like that. It's quite long.
Whoa! Fantastic!
In our small garden, but it is really valuable. So in there, like my husband loves to breed his own tomatoes. Oh, cool. So he's got all sorts of trials going on in there.
Wow.
He grows enough tomatoes to make, passata for the whole year until we get tomatoes again.
Great. Until you're sick of it.
And what tomatoes is he breeding?
Well, he's breeding, he's mostly trying to breed blight resistant ones. So that's his main thing. And actually he's done some really amazing ones. There was one that he bred this year that just still looked, until like he cut it down last week, it still had, its leaves were still so lush and green without barely any sign of blight at all.
Wow.
But obviously for flavour as well, because there's no point in having a blight resistant tomato if it doesn't taste nice.
And it tasted good.
And it tasted good, yeah.
Wow, what's he called it?
Do you know, I can't remember yet. He's from a sciencey background, so he quite often gives that. He's bred his own blight resistant potatoes as well, and he called them like A, B, C, D.
Oh no, that's no good. No, we need to talk to Mr. C and get
definitely.
some good names.
So he'll have some weird code for them that relates to what the parentage is, but I think until he's definitely decided they're ones that he's going to continue, then he doesn't give them names. So.
Okay, so watch this space then.
Yes, definitely.
For the Chapman potatoes.
Absolutely.
And so presumably tomatoes can't really be part of a food forest.
They could be if they're outdoor tomatoes. I've grown a lovely tomato called Mountain Magic before in a forest garden. And when I'm putting annuals into a kind of forest garden system, I just leave little clearings. So I've sort of filled most of the garden with perennials, but then I'll leave little clearings for things like courgettes or beans or tomatoes. So you can still grow a lot of our annual crops in a food forest system, but you just have to be mindful that perennial vegetables don't need as much feeding as annuals. So if you're going to if you're going to put annuals in, you need to maybe either give it more of a compost mulch or a bit of liquid feed. I don't liquid feed any of the rest of the forest garden, but if I'm planting annuals in like courgettes or something like that, then I'll just give them a bit more attention.
What liquid feed?
We use a seaweed based feed that we buy in, but we've also got nettles and comfrey and all sorts of other things that we use. But mostly we just use just like in a no dig system, we just mulch every year with homemade compost or chop and drop style.
Right. Are there any vegetables that just do not work in a food forest, or can you use it for everything?
It's mostly things that are really highly bred and a bit delicate. So things like lettuce really struggle just because they're just so delicate and they get so easily eaten by slugs. So if I'm going to grow my salads, I've grown them in like a pallet planter so that they're lifted off the ground and away from the competition. And things like thyme, they're fine in sort of pathways or on the very edge of a forest garden, but thyme just doesn't like competition of any kind, and will just die back. So it's just really, it's to do with a competition from other plants. If you want to grow something like carrots, you'd have to clear enough space around so that things aren't, growing over the top of the foliage and things like that. So things like that don't like so much competition, I tend not to plant in. So I wouldn't put in our normal culinary onions into a food forest system, but there's plenty of perennial onions. So my favourite is an everlasting onion, it's called, and it looks a bit like a spring onion, but it grows in bunches like a shallot.
Yes, love those.
And they're really fantastic because they bulk up so quickly, and then you can harvest a load, plant a couple back, and then they just bulk up again. So
cool. Oh, perfect. Garlic? Can you grow
garlic? Yeah, actually, I've grown garlic in the ground, but I use it cut and come again like I would chives. So I've got
I see.
So I've got clumps of garlic, which you can dig up and eat the bulbs of. But yeah, I've got quite a few patches, both in my own garden and other clients' gardens, of perennial clumps of garlic that just kind of bulk up, and then I'll dig up some bulbs. But as I say, mostly, particularly, they come up a bit earlier than chives, the leaves, and then I just chop them and use them for like garlic butter and things like that.
Yummy.
Right. And could you use them to replace a bulb?
You could do, but they don't, because you're growing them. You're not sort of planting them out and giving them the space for the nice bulbs to develop, like we pick when we space them out.
True.
They kind of grow more bunched together, so it's more like you dig it up and use it fresh, like green, but you wouldn't necessarily dig them up and store them as easily as you would like a nice, shaped bulb of garlic like we used to grow.
Yeah, okay.
But because they're in the ground all the time, you can just go and dig them up whenever you need them. So you don't really need to store them because they're just always there available in the ground.
Oh, that sounds an appealing way of doing garlic, Sweet Pea.
I do like it. Also cashing the leaves, because we really wanted to get, what's that one that kind of grows on riverbanks that has the garlic leaves?
Oh, you mean wild garlic?
Wild garlic. We always wanted to have that, but we're not sure that it would do well. But then having because
it's not damp enough, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and also it can be massively invasive, wild garlic.
Can it?
Really?
Yes, I planted it in a border years ago, thinking, oh, that'll be nice. It'll come up before everything else, and then all the other plants can come up. But because it comes up and the foliage is so thick and dense, it actually smothered out a lot of the other perennials before they came up. And then trying to get rid of it was just a nightmare, because once it's seeded into your bed, it's there for like forever. So.
Right.
Oh no.
Oh, that's useful to know. Do you have it very damp where you are? Or do you need it very damp for wild garlic?
You don't necessarily need it very damp. It doesn't want to be too dry, but I've seen wild garlic growing in cracks in paving, so I wouldn't have said that it needs to necessarily be damp as such. Maybe it doesn't want to completely bake in summer, but no, I haven't got it. I don't put it in gardens now. I just go foraging for it in other places.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's best.
That.
Just forage for it.
Yeah.
I'm still tempted, though. I wouldn't mind it being a bit invasive in some parts of our garden.
Yeah, and maybe you could grow it in a large pot if you, if you really wanted.
It's another way of doing it. I was just going to say actually about our mint drama, because we all know, don't we, that you should put mint into a pot, and we thought it was in a contained planter, but it's somehow got out and is moving its way into our beds. But we just keep pulling it up.
I was going to say, at least it's easy to pull up, because it does come out quite easily, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have the top layer of a food forest, which you said about trees. If you've got the space for a great big tree, great. But otherwise, fruit trees, for example, or dwarf fruit trees in a small garden. Does that not give too much shade then for the plants below it, or do they all sort of rub along nicely?
Well, I think you have to think of it as wherever the shade is, you can just plant some shade-loving perennials in there. There are some shade-loving perennial vegetables and fruits. But I think quite often, because it's called a forest garden, there's a lot of focus on the tree layer, when actually a lot of forest gardens that I design, I might just have one or two trees in, and the rest is actually shrubs and herbaceous plants, because the biggest mistake people make in a forest garden is actually planting too many trees, that then the canopies all join together, and then there's no sunlight at all underneath. And so actually, when we were talking about sort of getting inspiration from a forest and trying to copy what it does, actually the most productive part of a forest is along the edge where it meets, say, a field. And there's so much more light, and you get all sorts of, hawthorn and elderflower and sloes and things like that you don't get in the middle of a forest, because there isn't enough sunlight. So really what you're wanting to copy is kind of that woodland edge where there's maybe just a few trees, but then actually it's mostly shrubs and understory plants. So I personally don't focus as much on the trees, because if you're wanting a really productive forest garden, you want plenty of light to be getting to the understories. And I think even you can use the same theory of a forest garden and not even have any trees. You could just have a shrub, large shrubs and perennials and things like that underneath. So I think you could even miss out the tree layer if you have a really small garden or you don't want to create too much shade.
That forest part of Food Forest is really misleading, isn't it?
I know,
It just puts all the focus there.
It's a bad name.
It isn't a great name. It's one of those things that it's kind of stuck now, so it's very hard to. I know. I think it was Anna Locke who wrote a book called The Forager's Garden, and I thought actually that is a much better name for this style of planting. Is a kind of forage garden, because what you're doing in a way is you're just turning your garden into the dream foraging experience, which would be just walking along a hedgerow and there's just everything you could possibly want for your dinner. So I think of it more as a garden in which you can, everything's kind of there. It doesn't take too much work, but you can go and forage for whatever you want. You're not creating raised beds and you're not planting things out in rows, but it just sort of comes up in spring and you can go straight out and start picking leaves and things here and there.
Sounds bliss.
It does, actually.
Well, I'd be interested to hear what's in your dream garden, Pippa.
Yes.
I'm hoping we're talking food forests, but you might have totally different dreams.
Tropical.
I'll hand you over to Sweet Pea. She'll take you through it.
So, starting off, what would be the garden boundary if you want one? So, surrounding your garden.
Well, it would definitely have to be an edible hedge. Yeah, full of rose hips and elderflowers and sloes and things like that. But I'd like to add in a bit of dead hedging in there as well, because I think adding in some dead branches and dead layers as well, it really massively increases the biodiversity of a hedgerow if you've got some rotting wood and some, thickety bits for things to live in.
So do you build the dead hedge first and then you allow all those things to clamber all over it?
Yes, you can do. Or in my garden, I've created a massive 6-foot high dead hedge because the neighbour's fence is really ugly.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, actually, I'm going to put up a big dead hedge to cover it, and then it'll hugely increase the habitat. So that's sort of in front of a fence which has a hedge on the other side of it, and I'm going to grow all sorts of I've got some honeysuckles and kiwi and things like that are going to grow up the dead hedge. So
what a great idea. So it's one of your sort of common garden fence panels that you've got there, 6 foot high. You said there's a hedge beyond it, so if they've put a hedge to the other side. They've prettified their side.
Yeah, so they've got a massive laurel hedge on their side, and it's not even a nice wooden fence. It's one of those you sort of see them around playgrounds and things, sort of a mesh green plastic coated wire fence.
Oh no!
Gosh, one of those.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So so the dead hedge is a massive improvement, and it was just all the when we moved into our house, there was a big, massively overgrown Lelandii hedge. I mean, like 20 years without being cut, kind of size. So we cut those down, and so we just had loads of branches to do something with. So we turned them into a dead hedge. So I think you could do a combination of both. If you've already got a hedge, you could put some branches underneath it to make a small dead hedge, or if you're planting a new hedge, you could build a dead hedge and plant some plants in front of it.
Sorry to push the whole dead hedge thing. So just because we have a fence, an ugly fence, and we have a troublesome neighbour who we call Lord Farquhar. He's always putting nasty things into our garden, like weed killers and stuff like that.
Oh, great.
So we're planning to put a hedge in, and I would like a bramble hedge. I'd just like a massive bramble along that fence. So I was planning to do some hardwood cuttings from we've got plenty of brambles. And then put that along quite far away so he can't reach under the fence and pull them up. But with the dead hedge, so you've got all these branches from your chopped down Lelandii. Are you just piling them up, or are you putting some verticals in as well?
I put some vertical posts in. So I bought some 8-foot posts and then hammered those into the ground about 6. So they're stand about 6 foot. But obviously that's a very big dead hedge, so you could do much shorter. And sometimes in other gardens, I've just piled up branches and not put any poles in at all, because it's not a very high dead hedge, so it didn't really matter. So it's more like a kind of long pile of branches. But obviously for 6 foot high, that's, I needed some. And it depends if you want it to look a bit neater, then putting some stakes in immediately makes it look more intentional.
Bit more ordered.
But you can just make a pile in a line.
Okay.
And that works too.
So that's all it is, just piling up branches,
yes,
really.
Yeah, it's very,
and then
very
let
simple.
things grow over it.
Yeah. We had the whole use old Christmas tree method.
Oh,
Did try to do that.
Yeah, we haven't had enough Christmases, and there aren't going to be enough Christmases, though.
No, it does take a long time.
We spoke to Jaap in the Netherlands, who was on Garden as well. He had a Your Garden segment, and he joined us for a chit chat, and he got the community, so he put a big sign saying bring your old Christmas trees here, which is another way we could do it, of course. We want the hedge right now, so we haven't got time on our side.
No, we haven't got 80 Christmases.
So in your dream garden, how high is your dead hedge / edible hedge going to be?
Well, I really loved the secret garden when I was growing up, and so I would, I think probably about 6 foot would be nice, just to kind of give it that real enclosed, sheltered, secret feeling.
And so you would want this all the way around. You wouldn't want a wall like in the secret garden.
I'm quite happy with dead hedges, but actually, in terms of increasing biodiversity, like the more diversity of habitats that you have, the better. So actually, you could have a nice dry stone wall bit. You could have a cob built wall made out of mud. Just a bit of diversity of everything. I've even seen some beautiful. I went to visit John Little's garden as part of his Care Not Capital program, and they have been building the sort of equivalent of a dry stone wall, but out of builder's rubble. So it's got all sorts of broken sinks and concrete blocks and terracotta pots, and it's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, that's pretty cool. How's that? So that is dry stone. They're not using anything. They
have used some mortar to sort of keep it all together, but there's plenty of gaps and things for all sorts of things to make nests and live in them.
Oh, wonderful! And then you can start putting little plants in as well,
ferns and
gorgeous. Oh, that sounds incredible. We'll have to look that one up.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely.
And are you having any view from your garden?
Well, I do. Yeah, I do like a good view. So I think in the on the end that isn't going to let loads of wind in.
Yes.
It would be nice to have some far-reaching views over mountains and the sea. If I do
mountains and
by
sea.
The sea.
Yes.
So, woman after my own heart. That would be the ideal. Do you want it in this country?
I really love Wales, actually. Since having kids, we've not been abroad. We've just holidayed in the UK, and I've loved it. And I went to a permaculture festival in Wales this autumn, and it was held at a permaculture farm called Henbant. And their view is my perfect view. I stayed there in the around Easter time with my daughter, and we stayed in like a little, they call it a hobbit house. It's like a little underground Viking longhouse. It's amazing.
Great.
And you just have to sort of walk up the little path, and then you just met with this amazing view of the sea, and then just mountains coming down towards the sea. It's just beautiful. So if I could just put my garden in on their farm,
okay,
that would be just that would be beautiful.
Wowzers. Then would you like a shed or a greenhouse in your dream garden?
I would. I know that here I have a big polytunnel, but actually that's mostly Andrew who gardens in there. I find
experiments.
Yes, and I personally don't like being very hot, so I find like greenhouses and polytunnels in the summer actually just too hot for me. So I would like a nice shed so that in the winter I can just go in there and be all snug. So I'd like a nice shed that's mainly just for me to sit in a nice cozy chair and read a book.
Would you have a fire in there?
Knitting. Oh yeah, definitely
little
wood burner. And I'd like my shed to be built entirely from reclaimed materials. That would be really nice.
Oh, windows?
Cool. Yes, some nice old reclaimed stained glass would be quite nice.
Oh, stained glass.
Maybe with a nice window that looked out over my sea and mountain view.
For sure. Yeah, that's what I'm imagining.
Yeah.
Do you have any plants in your shed?
No, because I'm really not very good at house plants. I forget to water them.
Well, they look amazing.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to interrupt. We are looking at Pippa, who's sitting with the most exquisite backdrop that we actually talked about pre-recording, because we both have backdrop envy, lamp envy,
lampshade envy.
Beautiful cheese plant. some other,
Funny
I can't see,
things.
There's all sorts of ferns and
podophyllum.
all sorts, tradescantias. There's all sorts there, but that is entirely my husband looking after them. He's really good at houseplant care, so he's if it was up to me, they'd probably all
be
shriveled
brown.
up.
They'd be brown. I'm not sure if you can see the plant.
Oh yes,
it's gone what I like to call into winter mode.
Hibernation.
It does not have one usually, but that's how good I am.
Yes, that would be me. That would be me as well.
But if you had someone who came in and surreptitiously, without you even knowing of their existence,
then
plants,
I would like something similar to behind me. An entire green wall of plants. That would be amazing.
A little rainforest in there. Beautiful.
Well then, my favourite part, which is onto the plants. What would be 5 ornamentals for your dream garden?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult because I think I'm so used to growing food crops now that I was a bit like, oh yes, ornamentals. But I have to say that having done the research for my latest book, I've designed a pollinators garden. So it's all around plants for pollinators, year round fodder for insects. And actually, Geranium roseanne, whilst it might be quite a commonly used plant, I do love the colour. I've always loved the colour of Geranium roseanne, and it actually came out as one of the top plants for pollinators because it flowers for such a long period of time.
It does.
So
ours is currently flowering now.
Still now, ours are as well, even though we've had a few frosts. And the research showed that because it flowers for such a long period of time, it's like almost like a guaranteed food source. So insects will seek it out because they know exactly where it is. They don't have to keep going and looking all over the place for new sources. So actually that came out as one of the top plants. And the fact that it just flowers for such a long period of time is also a big bonus.
Striking colour as well.
It is, yeah. So we've got some pear dorundo in our front garden, some little pear trees. And we've got Geranium roseanne underneath those.
Oh, cute.
And when the pears sort of turn a really goldeny yellow colour, the kind of colour combination of that, we've also got some yellow crocosmia and the purple from the roseanne just looks absolutely stunning.
That sounds beautiful.
That's gorgeous. That's love that one.
Yeah. Then I really love, and something that's still flowering now, right up until the frosts, is Persicaria and Plexicorlis rosea, so the red bistort, but not the firetail one, which most people grow, but there's a rosea one. It's sort of a much softer pink. I just love that one. It'll grow in quite deep shade and in quite dry soil and also in quite wet soil. So it kind of, it's one of those plants that just grows in so many different places. And I love that even in a shady area, because the flowers are quite a pale pink, they really stand out. Whereas the darker red firetail might sort of get lost in the murk of a shady corner. And the insects just love it as well. It's constantly covered in hoverflies whenever I see it. And as I say, and it's still flowering now.
Right.
Oh, that's very cool.
Lovely.
Which is lovely.
I like that.
I like tough plants, That's what I really like. Tough plants that don't take much looking after.
I think everyone does. At the end of the day, it's just like, give me the tough plants. It's so much easier.
Where, are you growing that in your food forest? Or is that somewhere else?
That one, I've got a little bit in my food forest. I've got quite a lot at the Ecology Building Society where I manage their garden as well. So I've got quite a lot in the kind of pollinator areas there, and so in some places around the building where it's quite shady and it's hard to get other things to grow, that will do really well.
Very cool.
And then there's a lovely rose called Pimpernelifolia. I don't know if you know that one. So I do love roses, and I've got plans to get an apothecary rose for my garden because I've got really into herbs and using herbs medicinally. So I'm wanting an apothecary rose, but because I want one that is good for pollinators, I only really want to grow single petaled roses. Well, mostly only grow single petaled roses. If I want to use them medicinally, it is actually handy if they have loads more petals because you don't, you can get more petals per square metre if you have something with a head that's full of petals. But for
how are you using roses medicinally?
So I put them in tea. They're really good for tea. And also you can put them in oil, and so the rose petal will sort of extract into the oil, and then you can add it to things like we make our own moisturisers and things like that.
Oh,
So,
cool.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry, back it up. So you make, I didn't know you made all these sorts of things as well.
Yes.
So you making face creams and
just for ourselves, not to sell.
Right.
Yeah, and we make our own solid shampoo bars and things like that as well.
Right.
Oh, brilliant.
Just because, particularly when the kids were young, my youngest had really, really dry skin, and we couldn't work out why, because we were using all the right kind of baby body washes and things like that. And so we thought, actually, maybe there's something in all of these things, even the gentle ones, that's affecting their skin. So we just looked it up, and I say my husband is kind of from more of a sciencey background, so even though soap can be a bit tricky to make because of sort of mixing the lye and things like that in, it can be quite dangerous in some respects in terms of getting things to mix properly. He was just like, right, well, I'm going to make our own soap. So we've done all sorts of different combinations. The one that he makes at the moment is actually mostly made out of lard. Because it's a waste product, and actually it's very similar to our skin, so it's very gentle. And so we made our own soap, and their skin just cleared up completely from all these rashes and dry patches. So.
How are you making soap from lard?
So it's a case of, you get different oils as a base. So say mostly we use lard, but you can use olive oil, or you can use coconut oil. There's all sorts of different oils.
That's nice.
And then you get you make a lye. So I say Andrew's more the scientist, so he would know. And then you mix those together, and it hardens the oil into a soap. So we add in essential oil, so whatever you feel like adding in there. And if you want to make one that's, say if you wanted to add calendula or something like that, or the rose petals, then you just put those things in the oil to infuse, and then strain them out before you make the soap.
Okay, yes.
There's a great, I think it was called the soap calculator, that Andrew uses to get all the different ratios of all the different ingredients that you put in.
Oh, cool.
Interesting. And where are you getting your lard? From the supermarket?
Just from the supermarket, just from the supermarket. Wow. And in fact, while I was at Henbant, I was just discussing with someone how I'd wanted to make my own moisturiser out of tallow, because I'd heard it's very good for your skin. And they said, we sell tallow in the shop. So I've come home with a jar of tallow, and I've got myself some rose oil. So I'm going to make my own moisturiser, just literally tallow with some essential oil in.
Interesting.
But the one that we use at the moment is a coconut oil base. So you just melt the coconut oil so it turns liquid. You don't have to heat it as such, but just till it melts. And then we put in a few extra things like some vitamin E oil and a couple of nice scents in there, and then just whiz it up with like a stick blender until it goes from being liquid to being, I suppose it's a bit like when you whisk an egg, it thickens up. It thickens up. And it's as simple as that. We just put it in pots and use it. So that's very simple.
And for shampoo bars?
The shampoo bars is the same as a soap. So it's kind of a soap come shampoo bar. So
you use it for body and hair?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Interesting, because we converted to shampoo and conditioner bars many years ago, because I found we don't use a lot of plastic generally, and the most plastic that we were throwing away was from our shampoo bottles, and it really got me down. But I like the idea of making our own. Does it? It doesn't lather up though. Do you need to put something in to get the lather?
No, it does. The one that Andrew makes lathers up fine. What I'll do is I will send you the details of where he gets his recipes from. But I say I think it's called Soap Calc. Soap Calculator. And so you could look that up. But I'll send you the recipe, because it lathers up really well. So
oh, fantastic.
Interesting.
That'd be great, because also this Christmas I was planning on doing a whole load of homemade soaps. And I wanted to test out that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But to be honest,
is that my Christmas present?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is great, because I really wanted to have a little look into it.
And what's great is, depending on what you make, because we started by buying it from a local shop, But you know,
sorry?
the soap bars, the shampoo bars,
Okay.
they were really quite expensive, and not knocking the shop at all, because they've got to cover all of their overheads. So I'm not in any way saying they should have sold it for cheaper. That's just, you know, how much it costs.
Yeah.
But when we make it, particularly from the lard, and we put in the essential oils and things like that, we can make a whole year's worth of soap for about £50, £50-60.
Wow.
That is fantastic.
It's a massive cost saving as
and
well.
that's for a family of how many of you?
Of 4.
That's for family of 4.
Yeah.
Gosh, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wowzers. Well then, your 2 last ornamentals, what will those be?
Oh yes, I got completely lost there. Well, I think for me it always blurs a little bit in terms of what is called useful and what is ornamental. But I really love the rusty foxglove, Digitalis ferruginea. That's one of my absolute favourites.
Beautiful.
I've seen that growing en masse in the borders at Harlow Car when I was there, and I just fell in love with it. So that is definitely one of my favourites. And it's just like a kind of, a nectar skyscraper. You just always see it covered in bees. And for the same reason, I really love the Eryngium, Miss Wilmot's Ghost.
Yes.
So I've got some of that in my forest garden. I think that might have been featured in the garden as well.
I'm pretty sure I saw that, yeah.
But it was just amazing. And I think as well, it really helped because I don't know if you were the same, but this year we just had clouds of cabbage white butterflies all over the garden.
Oh, really?
And yet my kales had barely a single caterpillar on. And I think it was mainly down to the wasps because wasps will eat not just the caterpillars, but they'll eat the eggs as well.
Okay.
And I think that this Miss Wilmot's Ghost was sort of bringing the wasps in, because it was right next to where the kale was, attracting all these wasps in, who were then like, oh, look at all these caterpillars and eggs for us to eat. So it was just amazing to see these clouds of cabbage white butterflies, but yet have my kales completely untouched by caterpillars.
So you get the best of both worlds, because cabbage whites are pretty to look at, but you immediately worry about your brassicas. So to have them and not have to worry, perfect. And Miss Wilmot's Ghost, I absolutely love Miss Wilmot's Ghost.
Gorgeous.
We have one growing by the pond, and it's always alive. Full of bees and wasps are always around it. And also, talking about the foxglove, that is one of my favourite flowers. I would love to have swathes and swathes. We're trying to get them, because everyone says, they self-seed really prolifically, but not ours, unfortunately.
No.
So we're just nurturing this tiny little patch and hoping it will spread.
But I have done some little ones, which I sowed the seed of a whole load.
Oh, yes.
And then I put them just randomly everywhere in the garden. We have a few big clumps now, which should be ready for next year.
They're popping up, aren't they? That would be great. I wouldn't mind if the whole garden was foxgloves.
No, I'm the same. I absolutely love them. They can grow anywhere they like.
Well then, 5 edibles.
Yes, well, this was harder to choose my 5 favourite edibles because
to narrow it down.
Yeah, to narrow it down. So I just went with ones that, the first ones that came into my head really. One of the things I'm just harvesting at the moment is ochre. I don't know if you've grown ochre before.
Yeah, I haven't, but heard of it.
Ochre.
No, ochre, OCA. So it's a little tuber. It's related. It's an oxalis, so it's related to like wood sorrels and things like that. It's a little tuber, and it's from the Andes, and it actually came over to Britain at the same time as the potato, so sort of in the 1600s. At the time it came over, even the potato wasn't a particularly amazing crop. It was, quite small, and it wasn't anything like what we grow now. And it just happened that someone decided to improve the potato and start a breeding program to get us to what we have now, which is nice, big, potatoes that we can grow. But that didn't happen with ochre. Just sort of got, so the more that the potato grew in popularity, the more the ochre just kind of, fell off really.
So isn't ochre ripe for Mr. C's hands? Isn't he just the right person to start breeding ochres? And
I think that the thing that is maybe why the potato took off and the oca didn't is it's actually quite hard to get viable seed in this country. So it doesn't, like with potatoes, you're pretty guaranteed to get them to flower and some kind of fruit to set, if you left them long enough. But with the oca, it's actually quite hard to get them to go to seed. And I think that's probably the reason.
Yeah.
Because it's just harder. It's just harder to breed them. There are some breeding programs going on in different places, particularly in the US, to improve them. But actually, one of the things that I really love about oca is this so, unlike potato, which gets blight and all sorts of scab and different issues, it's fairly pest and disease free. So it doesn't get blight or anything like that. It seems fairly untouched by pests. The only issue I've ever had is one year I left them in the ground a bit too long in the winter and that they all got eaten by mice.
Well, that's going to happen, yeah.
But
so are they perennial?
They are tubers. So just like a potato, or say like a Jerusalem artichoke, you dig, you harvest them, but then you can put some back in the ground. And if you live somewhere fairly mild, you can put them in the ground and they're almost guaranteed to come up again. A bit further north where I am, I do put some back in the ground to grow some more, but I also keep some a bit like you would a seed potato and then plant them out in spring because they're hardy down to, the tubers themselves are hardy down to about -5. But if we have a prolonged frost up here, which we have had, I mean, last year we had solid snow for a whole week last year in January. So I do keep some inside just in case the ones in the ground get frosted and then rot away.
So how big are the tubers on an oca?
So they can be, I'm trying to think now, in terms of centimeters. You can, if you can get anything from like really tiny few centimeters, but you can get some up to sort of 10 centimeters plus long and maybe 3 centimeters wide. They're not tiny.
They're kind of like the size of a new potato, fairly.
Yes, so about that size,
Okay, cool.
But they tend to be kind of a bit elongated, and they taste really quite similar to a potato, but almost like a bit lemony. So imagine potato with some lemon. That's what they taste like, and they're really nice. You can bake them, you can roast them, you can chop them up and use them in stir fries. You can eat them raw in salads. They're really versatile.
Eat them raw.
Crops. So
sounds good.
So they're very. I like the foliage as well. It's very pretty. So
do you get much of a flower?
No, you don't. They don't flower very reliably in this country. So I did get maybe a tiny spattering of flowers on, but mostly it's just the foliage. So it's not like a really attractive flowering vegetable or anything. But the tubers, when you dig them up, particularly there's some varieties that are kind of pinkish, reddish coloured, and they're so shiny. It's like digging up jewels out of the garden. It's amazing. It's not like digging up a potato. It's like they're just so beautiful.
And that's already like a treasure hunt. Digging up potatoes to find these pretty ones.
Yes, definitely.
Sold.
Oh, that would be great. I love that first choice. What are the others?
So another one is pumpkins.
Yes.
I absolutely love pumpkins. We have grown, that's another thing Andrew's been breeding, is he's been trying to breed some pumpkins that are more adapted to where we are here in the north, so that kind of fruit and ripen early enough that we get a good harvest before we get our first frosts, but also ones that are really tasty and store well. So we like kind of really chestnutty pumpkins as opposed to some people like them really, really sweet, but we like kind of the more nutty, chestnutty flavours. And so we've mostly been growing and breeding with things like Crown Prince and Burgess Buttercup and things like that. And what I love about pumpkins as well, when we lived in our previous house, even though we did have a lot of land, most of it was northwest facing, and we were kind of rewilding meadows, so we didn't have a lot of space to be growing pumpkins. But we built a big planter in our yard. It was about 2 meters by 1 meter and quite deep. And we planted 10 pumpkins into this planter. And then we actually trained the pumpkins up the wall and along washing lines out over our yard.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
So we managed to grow 10 pumpkins, but only taking up 2 square meters of ground in the in the whole
Amazing.
yard.
That is also
And
very cool.
it was amazing how well they grew upwards. I mean, they are technically kind of climbing scramblers, but was how well the pumpkins held. So the first year we did it, we put them in net bags to support the fruit.
Yeah.
And then the second year, when I had my youngest, you know, just being pregnant and then having a baby, of course, we didn't have time to do anything.
No time for net bags.
We never put up net bags, and actually all the pumpkins were fine. And there was
fine.
even one massive pumpkin, which was probably heavier than my 6-month-old baby. This giant pumpkin just hung fine off. It was so heavy that when I was trying to cut it, I was holding it with one hand and got the secateurs with the other, and I had to actually get my husband to come and hold it while I cut it. Thought, there's no way that I can support this, but it had completely supported itself through the whole growing season. So
wow. We've actually been growing ours vertically for a few years now, and we had good intentions right at the beginning of, well, when they start growing, we'll then net them and support them. And we're quite lazy gardeners, so that never happened. And like you say, these massive grapefruit hanging there from what doesn't look like a particularly strong stem.
Yeah.
But it does support it. And actually then I just had to cut mine yesterday because we've got a lot of frost coming. And they're such tough stem, aren't they? Cutting through them is pretty hard. But
it's amazing.
They are incredible plants. And do you have any interesting recipes that you use your pumpkin for?
To be honest, I just like them simply roasted. That's my favourite. I like to roast them and just have them with pretty much everything. And then we turn them into soup as well. So when we're gardening, we're quite often mostly gardening where there's nowhere to go that's warm and nice at lunchtime. So to have a nice pumpkin soup is just amazing at lunch. My neighbour, she makes amazing curries. So sometimes we'll like pass her a pumpkin and then she'll pass us back some pumpkin curry. So that's
what a
deal.
That is a good bit of dealing.
Good setup.
What are then the last three?
So there's everlasting onions, which I mentioned earlier. So we love those just for how easy they are to grow and how versatile they are. And you can just use them in everything. Another one I love is golden oregano. Not a vegetable as such, but it is an edible, and I love it because it's so pretty. It's like such a bright colour in the garden of foliage that I really like to do. Quite often I'll do when I'm designing my forest gardens, I'll design them around a colour scheme, and so I love using sort of golden oregano in a colour scheme that's got lots of other kind of zesty yellows and greens, and then something to contrast, like, you know, deep purples or something like that.
Pretty. Is that in the ground or in a pot?
In the ground, I just grow it in the ground.
Because that's a Mediterranean-y herb.
Yeah, but it seems to, I've grown it before in borders that were in quite a lot of shade through the winter, and in, not, I wouldn't say boggy soils, but it certainly weren't dry, free draining soils. And I found that it grows really well even in the ground.
Is that the golden oregano specifically, or all oregano?
Well, I've tried a few different oreganos, but the golden oregano for me has done really well in all sorts of different situations. And I mainly love it for its colour, but obviously its flavour as well. So I put it in everything, in cooking, in salads, sprinkle on pizza. So I love it as part of, we do quite, in the summer particularly, we like to do foraged salads. So going out and just picking, you know, a few leaves off the oregano, a few leaves off, maybe some salads, a few small kale leaves, a few calendula petals, some nasturtiums, you know, to make these really beautiful salads. And the oregano, whilst I wouldn't use tons of it in a salad, just gives it like a really nice herby kind of flavour to it.
Great.
Oh, yummy.
Very nice. And then the last one.
The last one is Caucasian spinach. So I don't know if you've grown that before.
No.
It's actually a climbing spinach.
Oh.
And it's perennial, so it comes back every year. It quite likes the shade. And actually whenever I've grown it in shade as opposed to the one in full sun, the ones in shade actually did better. And it's just quite a lot of the perennial greens can be a bit bitter and a bit horrible to eat, in all honesty. But I find the Caucasian spinach, the climbing spinach, actually has a much milder flavour. And because it's perennial, it's just so much easier to grow than other things like spinach, which, even though I love spinach, it goes to seed quite easily or it gets eaten by slugs. So anything that's kind of perennial comes back by itself. I can grow it vertically, so I can grow more in a small space, and I can plant it in my shadier areas. So,
gosh, I mean, that sounds like a really good one for us, Sweet Pea. Does it have the same nutritional content as other spinaches?
I don't know, to be honest. I've not looked into that, but I kind of find that
is it a dark leaf?
Yeah, it's sort of a dark green leaf. Okay. Not as dark as something like Tuscan kale, but it's it's kind of a normal spinach colour. Okay. But I found that particularly when I was looking at edible tree leaves, so there's lots of tree leaves that you can eat, like mulberries and lime and beech and things like that.
Oh right, you can eat beech.
Yeah. When they're very young, they get a bit tough when they get a bit bigger. Okay. But actually, they did some research into the nutrition of tree leaves, and actually the research showed that they were some of the most nutritious leaves that you can possibly eat. And they think that it's maybe because of it being like a perennial sort of plant that's got roots going into such a large area that they can really pack a lot of nutrition into each leaf. So
that does make sense.
Cows always go for them.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's true.
Cows always try to.
Yeah.
We always see the cows eating from trees.
Yeah.
And giraffes.
Yes.
But what other trees can you eat the leaves of?
So there's things like hawthorn, which I really love. I mean, there's some leaves that are edible, but you wouldn't particularly taste nice. But the main edible leaves that people use for salads are mainly lime leaves, mulberry leaves, although some mulberries taste quite bitter, so that's a bit variety dependent.
Touch and
go. Then as I say, beech and hawthorn are the main ones.
Right.
Okay.
And with your Caucasian spinach, what are you growing it up?
Yes.
A range of things. Sometimes where I've forgotten to put some supports in, it's just clambering through everything else. Cool. I've got one growing up my dead hedge at the back of the garden. Mm-hmm. Some of them I've put in some obelisks, and so kind of all sorts of things really.
You don't have to tie it in.
Yes, you can.
Do, okay.
Yeah. It's not. It doesn't sort of cling to things
tendrils
like peas do. It's more of a kind of scrambly thing.
The really hard question is, what would be your one statement tree?
Yeah, that is really hard. There's so many trees to choose from. But I think I was trying to think one, because I've got a smaller garden now, I've had to be really, really careful about which trees that I choose here. And I have chosen a Cornus Kousa for here.
Yes.
Because it's just such a beautiful tree. And I love you can eat the fruits off them as well. And so whilst the fruits can be a little bit gritty because of the seeds in them, they're actually delicious. They taste really a bit like mango. So it's just kind of like something really different and exotic compared to like pears and apples. I really love that. So that's what I've put in my garden here.
Well, mango is my favourite fruit.
It is.
And obviously not a native, so
very hard to
grow. I suppose if you're allowed your dream garden, then I'll just have a mango tree, please.
Oh, trust me, there are a lot of mango trees in my dream garden. Yeah, so would you have a mango tree?
I think I would actually. Yeah, I do really love mango. Yeah.
Okay. Shall we have mango as your tree, but the Cornus Kousa is your honourable mention?
Yes.
We can do that. Yeah. Just on your dream garden, you talk about how your current garden is quite small. What sort of size would you be looking at? Would you like acres of land?
I think it's difficult, really. I have had acres of land and we were rewilding it, and it's absolutely beautiful, but it's also a lot of work to look after. Yeah, and I think people, sometimes when I hear people say, oh, I'd love to, buy 3 acres to grow my food on. And I sort of say, well, yeah, it sounds amazing, but actually when you're fighting with deer fencing falling down, or you've got brambles taking over large areas and you haven't got time to clear them, and I think that I would like to have enough space so that I could do everything that I wanted. But I think probably a wider garden with lots of wild areas, but I guess my nice walled hedged in garden, probably about the size I've got now. Actually, it's quite a nice size that's manageable when you've got full-time job and kids as well. It's like quite a nice manageable size.
would you like a pond or a pool, and what plant would you have in that area?
Yeah, well, I think I would really love a natural swimming pool.
Yes,
because
they are
who
loved.
wouldn't?
Exactly.
I don't really like being cold, so in my dream garden it would be it would just be naturally heated by hot springs.
You'd have hot springs underneath.
Oh my gosh, brilliant.
We haven't had that yet. We've had a lot of natural swimming ponds, but no hot springs.
No hot springs.
That's what I would need in mine as well.
Yeah,
Pippa, you're thinking of everything.
Yeah, so I love how they look. I love swimming. I love being in water, but I just hate being cold like that. So I've tried wild swimming on several occasions, and I do swim in the sea sometimes, but I don't enjoy being in cold water.
No,
so
it's
mine
painful,
would be
isn't it?
it'd be nice and warm. But I do love really useful plants, so I think I'd quite like some bulrushes in mine, because I love plants that I can like do weaving with and things like that. And also the seed heads of bulrushes make really great fire lighters, and I love having like a nice campfire and doing a bit of whittling spoons and things like that.
Oh, great! Oh, tell us about this. So, because I've heard about bulrushes being used for padding of
sponges,
sort of puffy coats.
Oh, okay, yes.
And even I think duvets and pillows and things like
Oh,
that.
even better,
it sort of solves a number of problems, I think.
It does.
How do you use it as a firelight? Do you put it in anything, or you just literally just burn?
You can just burn it. What it's quite good for is if you're using a flint and steel, like we quite often when the kids were younger, our fun activity would be to go find somewhere to have a little fire and use a flint and steel to get the little sparks and get the fire going. So just as a kind of nice, easily flammable tinder that you can put your sparks onto so that it would catch a light, it works really well.
Your starting point.
Brilliant.
And then tell us about your whittling.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I've always loved doing sort of crafty things. As I say, my degree was in sculpture.
Of course,
and so I like kind of crafting things. And kind of just before lockdown, I'd got quite into spoon carving. So I've done a bit of basket making and things like that. And the person who taught me basket making was also starting to make spoons and things like that. And so I thought I'd quite like to have a go. So I bought myself some knives. And also I was doing it a bit with the kids, when they were little, we wanted them to try all sorts of different things and to do a lot of kind of creative things. So we bought them like proper sharp bushcraft knives as well, but used in under careful observation.
Of course, yeah, but still fun.
But then
throw that disclaimer in.
in lockdown, some friends and I would, when we were allowed to gather outside in groups, we would get together around a fire and we would whittle spoons from bits of wood that I'd cut from the garden. I have loads of half-whittled spoons. It takes quite a while to do a decent one. But it's something really, it's like meditation. Just turning a stick into something useful, just, carving away. Yeah, it's lovely.
Final question is, what would be your favourite seating area to chill out, a drink to have with you, and a plant to have by your side?
So I really love sort of natural materials mostly. I would like to have a kind of round a fire, obviously, so I could do my fires and do some whittling. I've got some nice chairs in my garden now, which are actually kind of my dream chairs, and they're made out of pallets. Andrew's dad made them from some instructions from an old copy of the Permaculture magazine, which I found, and I know that he likes making things out of pallets. So we just gave him the magazine and said, "Oh, would you like to make us some of these?" So Andrew and I have got matching pallet chairs. They're very, very comfortable.
How high off the ground are you?
They're quite low. So they're really kind of like reclining, quite low chairs. They're not, you're not sitting around a table. No, very much would be great for sitting around a campfire more.
Yeah. Do they have armrests?
Yes, they have armrests.
Oh, fantastic!
Big enough to put your drink on.
That's what you need. Yeah. And do they have cushions? Did he make cushions?
He gave us some old cushions to recover, so I haven't done that yet. But he's given me some cushions from some old garden chairs that he had.
Yeah.
So he's given those to me so that I can recover them.
Oh, lovely.
Very
And
cool.
I think the drink, I would probably choose something like elderflower champagne, because I absolutely love that. We made some for our wedding when we got married, and it's just such an amazing drink, but it's so seasonal, so you don't get to drink it very often. So I think some nice elderflower champagne from my lovely edible hedgerows from around the garden.
So elderflower champagne, is that a cordial you're adding to champagne? Or
No,
making
a fizzy wine from the champagne, from the elderflowers.
Wow.
Yes. So you harvest those at what time of year?
So it's around May.
Spring.
Yeah, it's around May time.
And then how long's the process end to end from harvest?
It's just a few weeks. It's not long at all. Yeah, it's just a few weeks to make the elderflower champagne. So it's not a kind of aged wine where you have to wait a year.
No.
So
good.
It's ready fairly quickly.
You have just unleashed a memory for me. My grandmother used to make elderflower wine.
Oh, yes.
But was it fizzy? Because I never drank it because I was young, but I used to help her pick the... Oh, wait, that was elderberry wine.
Oh, yes. You can make elderberry wine, but that takes a lot longer to turn into wine. Whereas the elderflower champagne, it's only very mildly alcoholic, so you're not letting it ferment for a really long time. It's more... Yeah, it is. It's absolutely delicious. One of my favourite drinks. Yeah.
Good.
And probably plant-wise, I think I'd like to have something like foxgloves surrounding me, so that I can just, without having to sort of bend over or look too far, just surrounded by insects swarming. All the bees around on the foxgloves.
With their little butts sticking out.
Yes.
Well, I have got everything, so I'm going to read back to you your dream garden just in case I've got anything wrong or if there's anything you want to change.
Okay.
So, the garden boundary. First of all, we were wanting a view of kind of mountains rolling into the sea, that view that you saw on the permaculture farm in Wales. We loved that. Then you wanted an edible hedge with things like rose hips, elders, sloes, plus a dead hedge as well, so kind of mix between the two, 6 feet tall. And then possibly we're thinking in some areas some cob walls or some dry stone walls to have a bit of variation. Then you wanted a really nice winter snug she shed with comfy chairs, little wood burner, some windows, some stained glass, and a green wall, but looked after by someone else who you never have to see. Very important. Then your 5 ornamentals. We had geranium roseanne, red bistort, rose pimpinella, rusty foxgloves, and eryngium Miss Wilmot's ghost. Then your 5 edibles, we had ochre, pumpkins, everlasting onions, golden oregano, and Caucasian spinach. Your 1 tree, we went with a mango tree, but a special mention to Cornus kousa, which has amazing fruits on it. Then you wanted a natural swimming pool with a naturally heated by hot springs.
Yes.
And bulrushes in there. And your favourite seating area was really nice chairs made from pallets round a fire where you could be whittling, drinking elderflower champagne with foxgloves surrounding you.
Oh, it sounds amazing.
I can really picture it.
I can really picture it. This is very similar to my dream garden.
Yeah.
So it
is actually. I love the view, having mountains rolling into the sea.
Yeah,
that
for sure.
is bliss.
Well, thank you so much. Beautiful garden.
Oh, it's been lovely chatting with you. I've really enjoyed it.
And got some top tips to take away about soaps, which is
Many
great.
top tips.
I'm going to be doing that.
That's been a good old chit chat with Pippa.